Welcome to the Social Enterprise Academy Venture Showcase and Symposium. It's a final event of a great two-quarter-long program. And on behalf of UCLA, my name is Gloria Ko, Director of Partnership UCLA, Alumni Career Programs. On behalf of my Associate Vice Chancellor, Julie Sina, we want to welcome all of our community members, partners, nonprofit organizations, our students, our faculty, and really it takes a village to do a program like this. And we are thrilled that you are all here for the culminating event for our wonderful pitches and wonderful groups. I want to turn it over to our Professor Andy Atkinson for some welcome remarks.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all for coming to this final showcase. As many of you know, this UCLA Social Enterprise Academy is kind of a special kind of course at UCLA. It's really designed to go beyond teaching entrepreneurship in the classroom. It's intended to get students actively involved in social entrepreneurship with nonprofit organizations who are doing great work here in our Los Angeles and broader Southern California community. The idea for this academy came out of the work that I saw our partners Bessie Densmore and Archie Holton doing. I saw them running academies for nonprofits, teaching nonprofits how to plan and launch a revenue-generating venture that would support their mission. And it struck me that there was an opportunity here to have a new type of academy, one that involved the undergraduate students here at UCLA. So I made a proposal to Betsy that we partner up and run a Social Enterprise Academy here at UCLA. And this is what's come out of it. I would like to say that I feel this joint venture has been a tremendous success. This is our 7th year of having a Social Enterprise Academy at UCLA. We've had close to 70 participating nonprofit organizations. We've had now well over 300 students participate. And as a sign of the students' enthusiasm for this, for the 50 spots that we had for students this year, we got over 280 students applying to be in the academy. So there's a big unmet desire among the UCLA students to have this type of experience while they're here. The Academy is also an important part of the kind of new effort at UCLA to foster entrepreneurship more broadly. We have Deanna Evans here from Startup UCLA. UCLA is trying to foster entrepreneurship in research and in teaching among the faculty and among the students. We have a new entrepreneurship minor for the undergrads. This academy serves as the capstone experience for quite a few students in that entrepreneurship minor. That capstone is one where they're supposed to have a practical experience with entrepreneurship in an internship or here in our academy. It takes a lot of people to put this academy on. In the program, on the acknowledgements page, you'll see a list, a rather long list of people who really help us put this on. And I want to take a moment to thank them. First and foremost, and I guess they should be on the acknowledgements page, I'd like to thank the staff of the participating nonprofits in this academy and in actually all our previous academies. I know it's a big effort for your staff to come here. You're very busy, engaged in your own lives and in the mission of your nonprofits, to come to campus, over the course of our 5 to 6 months, and participate in our academy. So I just want to take a moment to express my appreciation for the effort that you all have put into this. I think our students benefit tremendously from it, as do I. I'm always inspired to meet you and hear about and understand your commitment to what you're doing here in the broader Los Angeles and Southern California community. Each of our nonprofits was assigned a mentor, usually an entrepreneur with some experience. The mentors are listed on the acknowledgements page. I'd like to thank them. We've all, students and staff, benefited from presentations from guest lecturers over the course of our academy. Those that have come and lectured are also listed on the acknowledgements page. They bring expertise and specialized knowledge that we just would not be able to reproduce on our own. 2 weeks ago, we had the first round of the competition for this academy. In that first round of competition, we had a separate panel of 5 judges, not different from the judges that are arrayed in front of us now, who went through a long day of evaluating pitches from all 10 of the participating organizations in this academy, gave them each extensive feedback, and they chose the 3 ventures that you're going to see giving full pitches today. So I want to thank them for the efforts that they put in 2 weeks ago. We have, I should say, just in terms of logistics, after you see the full 3 pitches from these 3 finalists, our panel of judges here will retire to deliberate, and we will have the other 7 organizations present a fast pitch about their venture, and you, the audience members, will vote on who the winner of that fast pitch is. So after that, we will have a keynote speaker that I'll let Betsy introduce, and then we'll have awards coming from the judges. We do have some special guests today. It's a little dark for me to pick them out, but I think they're roughly in that area. It's a delegation of students from St. Petersburg, Russia, ITMO University. We've been fortunate enough to have support from the U.S.-Russia Foundation to maintain an exchange between our 2 universities regarding best practices in social entrepreneurship. So this is the 3rd delegation of Russian visitors we've had to UCLA. I have to admit, it was quite tense getting the visas. We got them last Friday afternoon for a Sunday flight. And we're hoping, politics permitting, that we'll be able to send a 3rd delegation of UCLA students to St. Petersburg in September. The issue there, of course, is getting the visas. So as you can see, this academy and this project of what I would call like hands-on teaching of entrepreneurship is the work of many contributing hands. I am very grateful for all of that, but kind of most of all, what I take away from this academy every year is what goes on in our work sessions when I see the staff of the nonprofits and the students, I'll use the word wrestling with the challenge of coming up with a viable social venture that will support the mission of the nonprofits. It's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of ideas you have to bring to the table and details that you have to take care of. There's a lot of personalities that you have to mix. But what I see every year in this is a reminder of kind of the deep desire I feel all of us have to reach out and help those around us, those in our communities, and lift them up. And I think that I come away inspired every year from going through this academy. So I want to just thank all of you, and I'll now turn it over to Betsy Densmore, one of my partners in making this happen.
Yes, it seems like only yesterday that Andy and I met for an innocent coffee to talk about what each of us were interested in, and it turned into this. It's been a good run. I'm going to just reference, first of all, Academies for Social Entrepreneurship, which I founded in 2009, has now done about 24 academies, all designed to foster collaboration and build a space that is supportive of social enterprises, particularly those in nonprofit organizations, or I like to call them not-for-profit organizations, since we want our charities to be profitable. Having worked with a lot of different lead partners and really built up the ecosystem, I still will always tell people that our very best and very strongest academy is that which we get to do at UCLA because of the vast resources that we get to tap into and because of the extraordinary quality and talent of the students who get on the teams with the nonprofit organizations to figure out what will be a viable venture. I also want to take a moment to appreciate and acknowledge the folks that have made it possible for us to do this, which are another group, very important group, and that's our funders. So over the years, we've been steadily supported by the Nicholas Endowment, which has a particular commitment to UCLA and as well as to promoting entrepreneurship, and by the California Community Foundation, which also gets social enterprise and is very committed to capacity building in the nonprofit sector. And so we appreciate them, and we appreciate two organizations in particular who we consider strategic partners because of the role they play in helping us identify resource persons, both mentors and guest speakers, and that's the Social Enterprise Alliance, which is the national trade association with a local affiliate, and Social Venture Partners, which is also a national organization with a local affiliate that's very devoted to venture philanthropy. This year, our finalists are examples of creative earned income ventures that draw on the assets of 3 largely volunteer-driven charities, which is something new for us, and I'm very excited by it. We pride ourselves on finding a great earned income venture for any organization, but it is more challenging when the organizations are small and volunteer-driven. Nonetheless, we hope that their participation in this competition will lead to rapid growth. You have in your program book the criteria which we've used to develop these ventures and which the judges will be using to decide how to spread out the $30,000 award pool to the finalists. I encourage you to look at those criteria and consider them when it's your turn to judge during the fast pitch, when the other 7 organizations will be giving you a thumbnail version of what they're up to and why. And you all will be voting. You have ballots in your program. We'll be back to you with a little more detail about that after we hear from our 3 finalists. I want to spend a moment telling you about the highly diverse and experienced panel of judges that'll be deciding how to award the $30,000, because they very much represent the range of investors that any fledgling social entrepreneur could face. I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order, and so the first one I'm going to introduce, who also happens to be on the end, is, I guess my list, you are in alphabetical order, what do you know? Is Yolanda Gorman, who became senior advisor to the chancellor at UCLA for strategic initiatives in 2016 after serving as president of Phillips Graduate University for 7 years. Gorman was the first African-American woman to serve as the chair of the board of the UCLA Alumni Association. And prior and during her tenure at Phillips, she extensively consulted with a wide range of nonprofits and served as chairman of the board of the California Association of Nonprofits, which is called CAN, our state trade association, where she still serves as a member of the board of Cal Nonprofits Insurance Services, which is really CAN's social enterprise providing insurance solutions for nonprofit organizations throughout California. Next is Sona Chandwani, who recently became a financial executive at Aristotle Capital Management. Prior to that, she had extensive experience in the nonprofit management field, serving as the chief financial officer for some of LA's most respected nonprofit organizations. Most recently, she played an instrumental role in the strategy and operations for FAF Software, a Children's Bureau social enterprise solution for family service agencies. She's currently serving as treasurer for the Social Enterprise Alliance's LA chapter, and she is a Bruin. We're heavy on the Bruins, but you don't have to be a Bruin to be a judge. Charlie Steinmetz wears many hats, and he's been judging and mentoring for us pretty much from the beginning of this program. He's president of the Steinmetz Foundation, which supports educational programs in Southern California. He's also a member of the governing board of the Archaeology Institute of America. He's also president of JCA Associates in Tyranny Properties. And in his spare time, he's devoted to archaeology, to the UCLA Library, to the Ocean Institute of Dana Point, and he's a past board member of the UCLA Alumni Association, having gotten his MBA from Anderson. Daniel Stetson is executive director and a trustee of the Nicholas Endowment, where he works to provide support to the charitable organizations that exemplify its mission and vision. As I already mentioned, the Nicholas Endowment has a special commitment to UCLA and our entrepreneurial initiatives and has been one of our most stalwart funders. Dan learned the ropes of nonprofit management serving as president and CEO of the Ocean Institute for 10 years. He's also currently serving as the secretary of the Community Engagement Panel for the decommissioning of the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. So if you think you have a challenge, try that one on. And finally, Peter Taylor is president of the ECMC Foundation, where he has sponsored over $80 million of grants in initiatives affecting educational outcomes among underserved populations, particularly in the areas of college success and career readiness. Previously, Taylor spent 5 years as the chief financial officer of the University of California system after a long career in investment banking. Another one, one of the things that's a common denominator of all of you is you've done a lot of sort of back and forth between the conventional sector and the nonprofit sector. He is also a past president of the UCLA Alumni Association, as well as an alumni representative of the UC Board of Regents and a board member of California Community Foundation. I don't get to introduce Juan Sotelo because, sadly, he called us this morning and said that he really thought he was too sick to be in crowds. So we will make do with you 5 great folk. Thank you very much, and let's give them all a hand. So now it's time for our 3 finalists to do their presentations. And I believe the first one who should be mic'd up and ready to go is Seg Mentors.
Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Jerry Beckerman and this is Rafi Sands. We want to tell you about our workshop that supports underserved students into college. We guide students to create an excellent college essay in one day.
So today we're talking about one of the most daunting parts of the college application, the essay. As a 4th-year student at UCLA, I recently went through the graduate school application process, and I looked back at my undergraduate essay, and I thought, God, that was awful. It was over-edited, it was overthought, it was just not good. And so it got me thinking about the college application essay, and I started to wonder, for the thousands of college applications every year, there are so many students who work so hard in high school and just fall short when it comes to the essay. And what support is there out there to help them, especially for low-income and first-gen students who can't afford to pay $500 for half an hour of tutoring? The college application essay is a long and daunting process that starts with choosing a story, coming up with the idea, drafting that into something that is a narrative, and then finally going through edits and review. And our product, we believe, will fundamentally change the college application process. And that's because we've created a holistic 3-stage program that starts at the very beginning with the ideation phase, then moves into the drafting of an essay, and then concludes with the final editing. Now, what's out there on the market right now really only occupies this final stage, final editing. And like I said, it's $1,000 for an hour for someone to look at the essay you've already written.
So we've looked at summarizing into these three core areas. What can we bring to provide a unique, valuable program? Expert guidance is one of the first. And here we have real college admissions professionals that will review the polished college essay and offer good input. We have a step-by-step support process that begins with brainstorming that we'll talk about, writing, peer-to-peer review, and final edits. And tangible outputs, finally, students will walk away with their completed college essay at the end of the day that they feel great about. So here's more detail about how it looks. We begin with this passion process. There's guided brainstorming and self-discovery. This is unique. This is not what do you want to do, what career. This is who are you, what lives inside you, what are you passionate about, and build your essay around that. They do it individually, and then they move into their small groups for peer feedback and refine their passion, get real clear on that before they move to the outline process. Here, they write an outline in a classic way with the intro, the body, and conclusion, and do that on their own, and then bring that also into their small group for further refinement and insights from those in their small group in order to create a version 2 of their outline that's now so focused, because this outline is now going to guide them in preparing their college essay. Now into the essay, similarly, they use that outline to guide them in writing their essay, and as you see here, the V1, 2, and 3, at each version, they then bring it into their small group for additional feedback, and then back to a second version and a third version that is continually refined.
And I think the real value add of what we're providing comes in the early phases of coming up with this essay. One problem that I've seen with high school students trying to create their essay is that they want to fit. They want to fit something that they think application reviewers are looking for. And they start with the question and they try to fit a story into some message of who they are that makes them look good. Our program actually takes a different approach. And it gets students to think about their own lives and their own experiences growing up and challenges they've faced, and to produce a story out of that then we can work and start talking about the questions. One idea this was based off of is a program that was in Grand Central Station where they set up a telephone booth. It's called StoryCorps, and they asked people just personal questions. And the stories that came out of that people spoke into a microphone without any preparation, is absolutely phenomenal. And we want to take that approach to the college application essay process.
So we have a good history with us, beginning with Segue Career Mentors, which you see. Segue brings live speakers into students' classrooms to bring to life different career options. To date, we've had over 85,000 student career exposures, and a study by Harvard University that found statistically significant impacts. We moved into an addition with the Passion Spark retreats, which guide students, similarly, as we alluded to the passion earlier, to connect with what your passion is as almost the first step before you look at career options. And once their passion is set, then they move into, they match that passion to a career option where they can earn a good living, to have both a job where they are satisfied and be among the 19% of satisfied people in the workforce, according to a Forbes study, and a job where they can earn a good living. The profits that are made here will support underserved students with scholarships to attend Passion Spark retreats.
Now let's talk about the market for this. We estimate that there are 36,000 students in LA and Ventura County alone who apply to colleges requiring essays every single year. And we estimate that 61% of them are spending between $200 and $1,000 on college application services, which leads to a market just in this region of $21 million. But that's just the beginning. We believe that this program is such a breakthrough that it can be franchised and created into a curriculum expanded nationwide to serve the 3.6 million high school students who graduate every year. Best of all, we're able to offer it a competitive $250 per participant with scholarships available, which is a 67% operating profit margin.
And when we look at our team, we have all the people we need to make this real, from co-facilitators, program director, executive director, admissions experts that I mentioned, and team leaders of college students that guide each small group, as I alluded to earlier, to answer questions and help build it further.
Today we're asking for $18,000 to cover the operational costs of our first season, as well as the startup cost to create this program. We believe this program will be profitable from year one, and that's one of the biggest selling points. To conclude, we want to expand this program nationwide and unlock the college futures of thousands of high school students every year. Thank you.
You're in a really interesting market trying to sell to schools. And what I'd like to have heard more about is we that fund schools have always found that even if you want to give schools money, they don't return your phone calls. So what's your plan to get into the schools to offer this to your kids?
So this program is actually sold directly to students and their families. We will be using our already built connections with schools through Segue Career Mentors to break into that market and reach these students, but it's not going to be sold through schools themselves.
I think it would have been, one thing that would have been helpful would have been a little more information on how you would target, particularly low-income students, how they would be made aware of the services.
For everybody, I coach the judges, and mostly they should make general comments since we only have 5 minutes and can't get into a whole lot of back and forth. Peter, did you have a comment?
Great, Rafi and Jerry, thank you very much. Appreciate the passion you bring to this project as part of your presentation. I think I would have liked to learn a little bit more about how do you recruit the peers themselves. How do you get teams of college students to be engaged, to review essays, to provide feedback, and how do you train them to make sure that they do a good job? And how do you monitor them? So there's a whole layer of implementation that comes with having that crucial element of young people talking to young people about what makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share a little bit on that note. We don't have time? Okay.
Yeah, first of all, I really want to compliment you on an excellent presentation. As someone who has run a nonprofit for a number of years, I understand how difficult it is to be out there, and so I thought you guys did a great job on it. One thing, since I've been out of school for over 40 years, I don't really know what the essays, what they ask of you in the essay anymore. So you might just include a little bit about, what the schools are asking in the essay, so that guys like me could understand what they're looking for these days.
Yeah, I think the presentation was great. The slides were very clear. There wasn't a lot of clutter, and I like that you didn't read kind of from the deck. I think one of the things that we always also want to look at, there's so many nonprofits, there's so many ventures out there already, so what does the space look like? Are you the only ones doing it? Is the competition only the kind of, call it the private corporate tutors out there? So a little bit more about what the kind of the environment is.
All right, we'll let you rate. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, we present Maternal Mental Health Now.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly O'Connor-Kay. I'm the Interim Executive Director for Maternal Mental Health Now.
Hello everyone, my name is Jasmine Almanza and I'm a third year at UCLA.
In December 2010, 2 Santa Monica women gave birth to beautiful, healthy baby girls. When they brought their babies home from the hospital, they both expected to feel absolute joy. But instead, they felt sadness, anxiousness, anger, and despair. and they were embarrassed and ashamed that they felt that way. When the first woman brought her baby to the pediatrician for the well baby visit, the doctor asked her how she was doing as a new mom. The second woman was never asked how she was doing. 3 months later, she took her own life due to a severe case of postpartum depression. Her name is Kelly Abraham Martinez, and on the right is her daughter, Melina. As for the first woman, that was me, and this is my daughter, Tatum, on the left. Because the doctor asked me about my mental health, I received the support and resources that I needed. Melina's mom did not. Every year in America, over 1 million women suffer from postpartum depression, but fewer than 1 in 4 new moms is screened for the disorder by their doctor. The mission of Maternal Mental Health Now is to remove the barriers to the prevention, identification, and treatment of postpartum depression in Los Angeles County. We want every new mom to be screened for postpartum depression, and we want all new moms who are suffering to receive proper treatment. We've had a lot of success here in LA County. Cedars-Sinai is now screening every single mom who gives birth there for postpartum depression before she goes home from the hospital. And today I want to tell you about a product that we've developed that we think can help us achieve this goal on a national scale. Bringing Life to Motherhood is an online training program that consists of over 11 courses on a variety of topics related to postpartum depression. Healthcare providers that take our course are able to receive continuing education units in exchange. We're going to offer the course as a bundled course for $495, as well as individual courses for $95. Course titles include Symptoms and Diagnosis, the Treatment Plan, as well as Postpartum Psychosis and Suicide. Our product has already been developed and it's strong. This past year, we raised $30,000 from 60 individual registrations. But we're not nearly reaching the full market. So our goal is to make a significant investment in our marketing and sales strategy to drive revenue. We're going to be targeting individual healthcare providers, including OBGYNs, pediatricians, and labor and delivery nurses, as well as individual mental health care providers, such as licensed marriage and family therapists, social workers, and psychologists. The national associations of these professions have memberships totaling over 1 million people. In addition, we'll be targeting institutional buyers, including the 5,000 members of the American Hospital Association and 1,300 plus federally qualified health clinics nationwide.
Healthcare practitioners need to fulfill an annual CEU requirement in order to renew their licenses. For healthcare practitioners, this is an absolute requirement, and this is a customer need we're addressing through our product. We already have the credentials to provide CEUs, now we need to focus on reaching our target market.
There are a couple of organizations that provide online trainings and CEUs on maternal mental health, and there are even more that provide online training and CEUs to healthcare providers. But what makes our training unique is that it's completely self-paced, which means that the person who's taking it can do so from the comfort of their own home and at their own schedule. They don't need to be in front of the computer on a given time and day to complete the course. The course features a variety of dynamic and engaging speakers who are lecturing on their areas of expertise. And we've made a point to include personal stories of women who have suffered from postpartum depression in each one of our courses. These women represent different races, ethnicities, and income levels, so the provider who's taking the course is able to recognize their patient population. Finally, 97% of our past registrants have reported that they're satisfied or very satisfied with the course.
We will implement a 4-part business strategy. The most important aspect of our business strategy is a healthcare salesperson, which will map out all potential customers and build strategic partnerships with the institutional buyers. The marketing team will focus on the individual customers and implement marketing strategies that target those customers. In addition, we want to revamp our online website to make it more user-friendly and to have it more focused on our online training program. Lastly, we want to offer our users the option of purchasing individual CEUs rather than purchasing 12 at once. So far in 2018, we have sold 60 individual registrations without any marketing efforts or business strategy. In terms of our institutional registrations, we have not sold any, but we have received interest from Kaiser Permanente, Dignity Health, and Hoag Memorial. With the implementation of our business strategy by 2021, we expect to achieve 900 individual registrations and 6 institutional sales, which is only capturing 0.1% of our target market. We believe implementing our business strategy will significantly increase both our institutional and individual registrations. This is a snapshot of our financial projections for years 1, 2, and 3. Year 1's total revenue is based on 150 individual registrations and 1 institutional buyer. Due to the significant investments we're making throughout year 1, we expect to be $52,000 in the hole. However, during years 2 and 3, we expect to capture more individual and institutional registrations, resulting in years 2 and 3 being net income positive. This shows how much it will cost us to acquire a customer versus how much we're selling our online training program for. Due to the significant investments we're making throughout year 1, it will cost us more to acquire a customer than to sell our product. However, during years 2 and 3, it will cost us less to acquire a customer than to sell our product, which is favorable. This is our management team. They have over 5 years of experience in the maternal mental health field. All of them have been directly affected by postpartum depression, so this is a cause that's important to them. Kelly brings in the fundraising expertise, Gabrielle brings in the clinical expertise, and Ashley brings in the business management expertise. They have experience in both the healthcare and business fields, making them equipped to carry out this venture.
Based on our financial model, we're expecting $52,000 in additional costs in year 1 due to the marketing and launch costs. So today I'm asking you for a grant of $52,000 to cover these costs and help make the project a success. 3 weeks ago, I got to take my daughter Tatum to her first concert. It was the Katy Perry concert in Santa Barbara Bowl. Melina's never going to have the opportunity to go to her first concert with her mom. She's going to miss out on all of the firsts. Kelly Abraham Martinez did not want to die. She just didn't want to continue living the way that she was feeling, and her healthcare providers did not have the training that they needed to help her. So for only $52,000, we can make sure that no more children like Melina have to grow up without their moms. Thank you.
Dan.
Well, thank you. I thought it was a compelling story, and thank you so much for being so invested in it, because I think it could really change lives. A couple things. I liked your, in terms of your numbers, I think they were easy to understand, and you showed that there is growth and that you're going to work your way out of the hole into an area where you're actually going to be sustainable for the long haul. But one thing I think you might think about is if you could get some professional endorsements behind your product, so that you could say that it's endorsed by, physicians or psychiatrists, AMA, something like that. I think that would really help you in your marketing efforts.
Peter.
Kelly and Jasmine, thank you. Very thorough presentation. A couple of very basic questions I didn't pick up. You mentioned 11 courses. I didn't hear where, in fact, the curriculum, who developed it, who has a responsibility for updating it? Is that your responsibility, or are you buying them off the shelf? The size of the market, you had a picture of the map of California and a whole bunch of different subspecialties you could market to, but is there a national market as well? And on that long list of professionals, only because my wife is a public health educator in IBCLC, so she teaches brand new mothers how to do breastfeeding. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I didn't see that up there, so you might consider them. But otherwise, thank you very much. Very, very thoughtful presentation.
Want to just keep going down? Charlie?
Okay, thank you. What I liked was you're in a real big opportunity area that nobody else is addressing. What I'm still not sure about is, I like the simplicity of the numbers, but they didn't make sense. So with your 52,000, I really need to, marketing is very expensive. And getting into hospitals, again, is very expensive. And so that talks about strategy. Mm-hmm. And I'd be really interested on what your strategy is to get to the right contacts in the hospital.
Do they have the financials?
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is, if we have time after they've all commented, if you want to comment, then we'll go ahead with that.
Add it to your presentation, though.
Mm-hmm. I think, again, the slides were well done, and the fact of breaking out kind of the target market, the acquisition cost of a customer, I think that's a really, it shows an investor that you've put some thought into what it's really going to take. I think Also, again, going back to the product itself, I think it would be, and I think to echo some of the comments, helpful to either talk about if the products are research validated or really kind of who's created these so that a customer can get comfort that these are actually products that will deliver the results that you all are looking for.
And Yolanda?
I also want to thank you for a very compelling presentation. I think you make a very strong case for an important product. And there were a couple of things that one I want to compliment you on. I think taking some time to understand the market is important, and you also provided us with information on how people have received the product thus far. So I think that's really helpful. One thing that I think would also be helpful as you lay out your four-pronged strategy, a few more examples of how the actual activities, what does that mean for your marketing? You know, what ideas do you have for marketing? And then the other thing I think might be helpful is as you talk about your both your growth strategy and the change in revenue that you have from year one, particularly to year two. You made a comment about the cost of acquisition going down. It would be helpful to know sort of what are the factors that help the cost of acquisition go down as well.
Do you want to just hit on some of these comments?
Sure. The curriculum's been developed by Maternal Mental Health Now. And there is a process taking place right now to create like a national certification for trainers in this space. It's not done yet, but we're in talks about that. I was curious if you had the financials, because I think you have to look at that closely, but then you'll see like where the costs, the $52,000 are being invested in year one, and how that goes down over the course of the 3-year business plan. Is there anything else?
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Tina Hovsepian, and I'm the founder and inventor of Cardborigami. And this is Greg, our representative from our awesome UCLA team that's been working with us. I wanted to start with sharing a little bit about why I started the nonprofit Cardborigami. So growing up in LA, I know that everyone here probably knows about the homeless issue. And for me, it had been something that's been always on my mind and something I wanted to help address. But as an individual, felt like I had no, way to make an impact on such a big issue. Actually, today, the issue is so big that we have over 45,000 people that don't have access to shelter. It just doesn't exist. So as an architect, I decided to take on the challenge of finding an alternative shelter solution that would be low cost and environmentally friendly, and that's why I designed Cardborigami. And the mission of our organization is focused on design. So we provide not only shelter, but dignity through design and hope for a better future. This is a photo of the shelter on the right, and as you can see, it's made out of cardboard, but it's treated to be weather resistant, and it's folded into a pattern where the entire shelter comes pre-assembled and can be deployed immediately to provide space with no assembly required, and then it collapses to a fraction of its size when not in use to be either stored or transported as needed. On the left, you'll meet Alexander. He's a homeless youth in LA. He's 19 years old, and he actually tested our shelters out for a few nights recently, and he told us that his feedback was it was more comfortable than he expected. He loved the design and thought it was inspiring, and he liked the idea of potentially being able to customize the shelter. So in LA, there's a lot of people like me who know about the homeless issue, want to do something to help, but don't know how until now. We're excited to launch our new earned income venture, Cardborigami Design. It will be an interior design business that allows consumers to give others a home by improving theirs. And our first product will be a nightlight. And our focus is that everyone deserves a shelter, so consumers like you, like everyone here, can purchase a nightlight to brighten your home while also providing hope for a brighter future for your neighbors in LA. We'll come out with other potential products in the future as well, but we're starting with our nightlight design as the first product. A little bit about our management team. Genevieve Liang is our current executive director at the nonprofit, and she'll continue to take on the mission lead with a background from USC Marshall School of Business and a proven track record in scaling startups. And myself, I would take on the earned income lead, moving forward Cardborigami Design, the new venture, and as an architect focused on thoughtful design, I'll make sure that our products are of high quality. And with my experience in business, I'll also make sure we have the sales we need to help fund our mission-based programs. So now I'll pass it on to Greg to talk more detail about the venture.
Well, thanks, Tina. I think one place you really hit the nail on the head was when you were talking about your experience growing up in Los Angeles, seeing the problem of homelessness and not knowing what you as one person could do to be a part of the solution. Well, Cardborigami Design's products allow consumers the opportunity to do just that. The purchase of 2 nightlights translates to funding a shelter in Los Angeles for up to 6 months. On the right side of the screen, you'll see children enjoying our Cardborigami Kids Fort, customizing it and making it their own. And parents know that they can buy this product, bring joy to their children, and also provide shelter to someone in Los Angeles through direct funding. The impact of these products attracts people who are socially conscious, but the fact that Cardborigami Design's products are designed by a renowned architect makes the appeal that much broader. Our beachhead customer is a design-oriented, socially conscious individual in a high-impact city like Los Angeles. We know 2 things about this market. 1, it's very large, and 2, we know how to reach it. The first way we're looking at doing that is through lighting and furnishing stores. Here in Los Angeles, there are over 1,200 of those, and Cardborigami has already partnered with Design Within Reach. Consumers who shop here care about design, but also want to do more with their dollar. That's also true in lifestyle and magazines and media. For example, the 500,000 subscribers to Elle Decor who have already seen Cardborigami featured in that publication care about decor, but the evidence shows that they're also willing to spend a little bit more if they know that their money is going towards a product that benefits a good cause. Finally, museums. There are 28 of these in LA that attract, on average, about 500,000 people per annum. Cardborigami Design is interested in selling their products at museum gift shops, like in the Architecture and Design Museum, where Tina, as an architect, already has natural connections, because these people care about our city. By going to museums, they've identified themselves as people who care about Los Angeles' history, culture, art, and also its challenges and its future. So you can see that Cardborigami Design's marketing strategy is specifically tuned to reach the customers that it wants to attract. This targeted marketing is a core facet of Cardborigami's business strategy. We talked about the direct funding that Cardborigami Design's products provide to Cardborigami as an organization at large. But that's only part of the benefit that Cardborigami Design provides. That's because every buyer of a Cardborigami Design product is another member of the community who's been influenced by the mission and mobilized to be a part of the solution. With these tailwinds, Cardborigami Design will be able to offer an expanded product line that builds the brand as one at the forefront of providing shelter to those who need it the most. We'll start here in Los Angeles, but the great thing about this business strategy is that it's scalable. It transplants to other cities. Here you see San Francisco, Seattle, and San Diego. In these places, like in Los Angeles, there's a huge market of consumers that see homelessness as a problem in their city and also want to do something to be a part of the solution if they only know where to start. In each of these cities, Cardborigami is positioned to dominate because the products appeal to people who only care about putting the most intriguing and artfully designed products in their home, and also to those who care more about doing good with their dollars, and anyone in between. When I was talking about marketing to this broad spectrum of consumers, you may have noticed a trend of Cardborigami having leveraged past relationships and strategic partnerships that we can use to support our venture. Another one that I'll highlight because Tina glazed over it modestly is that she's a member of the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, giving her access to a network of influencers that can support her in the venture. Cardborigami Design makes money. It's net income positive in the black after the second year, and it continues to grow. Importantly, it's cash flow positive during year 2 so that every dollar that is generated by Cardborigami Design goes to support the mission of Cardborigami as a larger organization and ensures that customers really can give others a home by improving theirs. With that in mind, I'll pass it back off to Tina to wrap things up. Thank you.
So going from feeling helpless to having an idea, implementing it on a small scale, And having it see the bright future of how we can scale has been rewarding for myself and my team. But we know that we can do more, and we're asking for your support today to be able to do so. By launching Cardborigami Design, today, we can do so by asking for $40,000. That will cover the startup costs and the production expenses for 2 years until we're self-sustaining financially. But in that process, we'll be able to create over 3,500 shelters for our homeless neighbors and friends in LA. So we hope you'll support us today in that effort. Thank you.
All right, I think if you're ready, we'll start at that end of the table this time.
You're on.
Oh. Well, thank you, first of all. I appreciate, the presentation and the issue that you're working to resolve. And I think that it is really an important area to focus attention on. I like the idea that it offers individuals who would like to have some impact on this problem and a way to do that. So that really is helpful. One thing I think would be helpful to me, in fact, in your last in this last slide where you talk about the startup costs, it would be helpful to get a little better sense of what those specific costs are. Because it's hard to tell, and because this is a product that you're manufacturing, some better understanding of what those expenses are and how your funding would really help you to cover those, and again tying it back to your financials, how the investment will assist you in getting to the cash positive in the second year would be helpful.
I believe we have that information. Is that okay to answer?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, maybe. We want to hear from all the judges.
Sure.
Okay. And then if there's time, you can respond. Okay?
Got it.
I think that a little part and parcel to that, I think what also would have been really great to see is we talked a little bit about who the end user of the shelter was in the beginning, but we didn't really talk about how kind of selling the nightlight, how much of that is going to go towards the cost of building the shelter and how we're going to distribute the shelters. How is that impact actually going to happen? And so I think it's a little bit of is the presentation about selling the nightlight or the fort, or is it about the number of shelters we're going to roll out? And I think depending on who your audience is, you want to just make sure you're tailoring. Is it about the impact that we're actually making? And kind of follow that story back to, what's his name, Alexander? Mm-hmm. And kind of just follow the story back. So.
Yeah, I just want to build on Yolanda's. I like the idea of going through museums, but I've worked with a lot of museum stores in the past, and storage and capacity is always an issue, and I have no idea what a collapsed shelter would look like or how much space that would take up.
He's kidding me because I ran a store that was like a museum store. But want to compliment you. I mean, it's awesome that you guys are in a positive cash flow so early on. A huge problem that you're working to tackle. But I get a little confused because of the shift back and forth between the nightlight and the shelter itself. So for me, being someone who ran one of these museum stores or had that as one of the businesses that I ran, you know, what are you doing to market this to the stores themselves? And is the breakdown from the revenue, are people buying this because it's a great nightlight and that it stands out on its own as a great nightlight that you need? Or are they buying it because it's something that's going to help build the shelters?
So the worst part about going last is everybody's kind of made your comments already. Tina and Greg, very creative idea and creative presentation. Thank you. The only thing I think I would add pertains to production costs. I didn't get a sense for if you're selling a nightlight for $40, what does it cost you to make it? And net, what are your net revenues that come out of that? And how might those then be applied to your pop-up weather-treated cardboard shelters to get a sense on scalability? But otherwise, again, very creative idea to a very vexing problem. Thank you.
How much time do we have? All right, you have 40 seconds to.
Do you want to talk about the cost?
Anything in particular to comment back?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I would talk about just in regards to the museums and how we'll market our products there, the reason that we would be looking at those is just because, like I said, the people, and to talk about why Cardborigami's consumers would buy the product, it doesn't have to be on one side of the spectrum or the other that they really care about the design or that it's going to the mission. The great thing about Cardborigami design, and the thing that I think gives us a competitive edge, is that we offer both, and we're one of the only players in the market to do that. So this nightlight, not only does it support a mission that people care about, but it also is something that looks good and will be displayable in your home. All right, thanks.
So this concludes the presentations of our finalists. We will now be shifting into the opportunity to hear from the runner-ups with their fast pitches.
Everyone experiences a traumatic incident at one point or another in their lives. Meet Jane. It was just another day for Jane as she was driving to work when suddenly, bam, a loud crash. Jane's car had been totaled. Completely shaken and short of breath, she struggled to stand up. A woman nearby ran out of her house to assist Jane in recovery. Within minutes, her breath started to deepen and her shaking diminished. Luckily for Jane, this woman was Gina Ross, renowned therapist and founder of International Trauma Healing Institute. Gina was applying a scientifically backed technique known as emotion aid to help Jane release her emotional distress on the spot. With this, Jane was allowed to return to work more quickly and her day-to-day activities more quickly as well. Emotion aid is a technique that combines mindfulness and neurobiophysiological processes to facilitate the nervous system and release of emotional distress and traumatic arousal. And we don't need to be a certified therapist to practice this. We all have the capacity to regulate our stress. In a study published in the most prestigious trauma journal out there, Journal of Traumatic Stress, emotion aid was shown to reverse symptoms of PTSD in over 60% of the sample. When we think of trauma, we often think of major life accidents and events like Jane's, but there's another place where trauma lives every day, and it's in our corporate offices. In fact, according to an article by Forbes, workplace stress causes $190 billion in healthcare costs per year. Trauma isn't just a health problem, it's a business problem. That's where Take Control Solutions comes in. My name is Frances Lai, and I'm here to present Take Control Solutions on behalf of the student group for International Trauma Healing Institute. Take Control Solutions is a corporate training program that will give employees all the tools they need to practice emotion aid on their own. In a survey conducted by the American Psychological Association, 35% of 1,200 respondents said that a lack of motivation was the main thing that resulted from workplace stress. Our interactive corporate training programs will be delivered in 2 half-day sessions by certified emotion aid trainers to groups of around 20 to 30 employees and be priced at $500 per employee. Gina, founder of ITI, recently returned from the UN, where she was praised for her work and had conversations about starting a World Trauma Awareness Day. ITI has over 15 years history of healing trauma in our local communities and training professionals worldwide. Take Control Solutions will only further ITI's growth and impact in our community by extending into the corporate workspace. We hope that you can join us in healing trauma in the workplace, one corporation at a time. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I needed help. I suffered from a rare disease known to my family, known to my community, called recidivism. I went in and out of different jails for over 6 years, and eventually I went to prison. I knew something had to be done. My name is Skip Townsend. In 2006, I formed an organization called Second Call, which stands for Second Chance at Loving Life. We work from a grassroots approach of dealing with the rupture and the repair of dysfunctional families. We deal with anger, low self-esteem, and we also deal with depression in men and young boys. Second Call is a community-based organization, and we work with ex-felons, parolees, and others who society normally disregards. I'm gonna give you an example. Charles Slay, we call him Little Man. Little Man is a childhood friend. After doing 27 years in prison, Little Man came home working menial jobs in warehouses at minimum wage. Since then, Little Man has become an IBW Local 11 electrician, and he's now beginning his 4th year in that role. I have another example. Young man named Gilbert Trejo. Gilbert Trejo went to prison at a tender age of 16. He spent 38 years in prison. When he came home, it was like he was disconnected from the fabric of society. So I'd like to tell you that right now, Gilbert Trejo is not only experiencing his first year at home, enjoying freedom, but also his first year of being an IBW, Local 11 electrician. And that is because Gilbert, too, joined Second Call's Wolfpack. So the irony of both of these men are that at one point, they were both part of the destructive and negative lifestyle inside of prison. But now that they've joined Second Call, they have lent us their voice, the power of their influence, and not only being positive role models at home, in their family, in the community, but also in those individuals who are still incarcerated. So Second Call saves lives every day and everywhere. And what we're asking for today, we're asking for your vote. It costs $60,000 for us to do in-reach, to go inside of prison, to go inside the communities and help those who are struggling. So we want you to support Second Call, and imagine if no one believed in you.
Five years ago, Mobile Film Classroom rolled up to a high school in South Los Angeles with its RV. The RV was loaded with editing bays, cameras, and a sound recording booth. 20 students climbed on board to learn how to write, shoot, and edit their films. One of the students is Aldo. Aldo was a senior in high school. His passion for filmmaking was obvious, but filmmaking as something that he could do was not. Mobile Film Classroom develops the next generation of storytellers like Aldo, who went on to graduate from Santa Monica College with a degree in film. In 2017, his short film, Out, was showcased in the Cannes Film Festival. Mobile Film Classroom doesn't only train kids for careers in film. Through our programs, kids as young as 8 years old learn how to collaborate, think creatively, and manage their time, building a tool belt of skills that are essential for any career. Now, these are the same skills that a study by Google in 2013 have found to be indispensable for their best teams. My name is Winnie, and I'm representing Mobile Film Classroom as a student who's worked with them for 6 months. Mobile Film Classroom is so dedicated to their cause that this past fall, Apple recognized their expertise by choosing them to be a participant in their first ever short film challenge. And in just 5 years, Mobile Film Classroom tripled the number of students going through their doors per year, from just 350 to over 1,000. Now, as you can see, we are growing very rapidly. Currently, 80% of our revenue comes from contracts with public schools and public libraries. But this makes us vulnerable to budget cuts as well as downtime when school is out. So to keep up with our growth, we need a strong and stable source of income. Enter our social venture, which is a mobile film day camp. With our expertise, we will provide camps for kids from more affluent families all year round. Surprisingly, there are very few film-focused camps for kids here in LA, but not surprisingly, they run out in a blink of an eye. With every 100 kids going through our camp, we can fund 150 more underserved kids for free. To make that happen, we're asking for $60,000, which will help us retain our staff to teach all year long, as well as upgrade our equipment. I encourage you to visit our booth today and learn more about us, because we have empowered so many thousands of kids. Imagine what we can do with financial support. Thank you.
Think big, start small, move fast. That is how our organization works. My name is John Hobson, and I'm CEO of a nonprofit called CIELO, which stands for Community for Innovation, Entrepreneurship, Leadership, and Opportunities. CIELO helps underserved population become economically stable. We do that through training, through classes, business acumen, and workshops. We help them build the entrepreneurial mindset that allows them to be more stable to either start a business or to go to work for somebody. Our goal is to equip those clients with the mindset, with the passion and resourcefulness that will give them a leg up to make them more successful, whether they choose to start a business or to go to work for somebody. Last year, CIELO helped over 1,000 people in Orange County become economically stable. Our concept is a green distribution company that specializes in daily recyclable, our concept is a green distribution company that specializes in sustainable products delivered on demand. We're really going after biodegradable, environmentally friendly products to help the small businesses. We want to get rid of plastic and styrofoam. Our goal is to help bring these sustainable options to the small businesses and micro businesses to help them improve their businesses. Typically, environmental products have been for the affluent. Our goal is to bring it to the underserved communities, including micro businesses and small businesses. We really have 3 areas that we will be pulling clients from. 1, CIELO clients, small businesses that are non-chain restaurants, and also large corporations. CIELO has a built-in client base of about 1,000 people, and 20% of those are restaurants. So that's a built-in client base that we will be pulling from. Of the 420 restaurants, small businesses in Orange County, about 100 of those are non-chain. So we'll be working with those. We'll also be working with large corporations. We have identified 2 organizations that want to work with us because they want to help with a corporate social responsibility. Our goal really is to bring this opportunity to small businesses and to small micro businesses to allow them to grow their business and overcome challenges. Currently, customers want more. They want sustainable options at their clients and at their restaurants that they work with. And legislation is changing what is going to be happening in the future for those restaurants. So CIELO is the solution that will be there to provide that for them. Long term, what does this really do? Why would we do this? We want to bring more options to small businesses and help them become financially stable, which then in turn makes them a better economy. Also, the revenues from this will help CIELO become more stable and put those revenues back into our mission to help more people become economically stable. All right, thank you.
Imagine, you're 18 years old, leaving your home country to come to the US. You don't speak the language very well, and you don't know anyone here. But you came for a college education and decided to go the community college route because it's cost efficient and it'll position you well to transfer into an elite university. Higher. Once there, you come to find that there are no services catered to your very specific needs. You become so overwhelmed with trying to understand the system and apply for internships and apply for transfer that you become isolated from your peers. You begin to feel stuck, even a little hopeless. You ask yourself, where is this land of opportunity? Hello everyone, my name is Phoenix and I have the pleasure of representing LEAP at today's event. LEAP is an acronym for Leadership Excellence Aspiration Platform that has already helped hundreds of college students and young professionals with career and professional development services in the STEM and business fields. LEAP's mission to support and foster the success of college students and young professionals is already being realized as we speak by LEAP's committed and experienced staff. In addition to LEAP's commitment to the mission, LEAP also has an immense network, or professional network, that spans across the STEM and business fields, which has already helped students get jobs at places like BCG, NASA, JPL, and more. Our business venture became simple. We are utilizing the successes of LEAP's current programs and bundling them into a single service. Our venture, a mentorship program that is located directly on community college campuses that has services catered specifically to international students. Our services include, but are not limited to, resume workshops, drop-in advising, and large-scale career networking events. Our goal is to help international students increase enrollment at community colleges. Not just that, but also help community colleges and increase the diversity in our communities. A community college that utilizes our service is far more profitable than one that tries to create similar services themselves due to the high cost of hiring and training additional staff that would also lack the skills and expertise already possessed by LEAP. In closing, we are offering international students the opportunity to obtain an education from some of the best institutions in the world, all while increasing the diversity in our communities. Thank you so much, and if you would, please join us at the LEAP table to learn more about how you can leap forward with us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Will Taylor, and I'm here on behalf of Campus Crunch. The transfer rate at U.S. colleges is at an high, as more than 1/3 of undergrads would transfer at least once in their academic career. Personally, I transferred on 3 separate occasions, attending a total of 4 colleges. In high school, I didn't have consistent access to a guidance counselor, nor did I have the privilege of being in an expensive college preparation program to steer me in the right direction. Instead, I had overzealous coaches recruiting me to play on their basketball team without ever considering how I'd fit into the university at large. Had I had Campus Crunch, I would be able to make it here a lot sooner and a lot smoother. Similar to my story, there are thousands of underprivileged, high-potential high school students that are looking to attend college but don't have the accessibility to an affordable and a centralized college information platform for them to rely on when making one of the most stressful and important decisions of their lives, where they'll spend the next 4 years. Campus Crunch is providing a solution to that problem by offering a personalized video content streaming platform that will enable students to better research, identify, apply, and enroll to a university that is the best fit for them. For just a subscription fee of $19.99 on a quarterly basis, students will have unlimited access to our platform to virtually engage other college students already attending their dream schools, to ask simple questions like, what dining hall has the best food? How challenging is it to obtain a PTE code? Or how to join UCLA Radio? Campus Crunch is powered by the Cooperation Act, which is an international organization that provides emotional relief and educational support to underserved, disadvantaged students in third world countries, all managed by high school students, I must say. Just recently, club members sent over 800 books to middle schoolers in Fiji. Unlike our competitors, all of the content on Campus Crunch is uploaded by verified college students and checked for accuracy. Most importantly, we don't sell information. We facilitate real-time interaction between students to provide reliable social insight in a real-life campus experience. So today, I'm here to ask you for $22,000 in startup costs to cover our web development, content production, and advertising fees. With the growing user base, we expect to have a full return on investment as our content costs do not move proportionally with subscribers. With that being said, your support will allow Campus Crunch to amplify the social impact of Cooperation Act, as we would donate 30% of our proceeds to first-generation scholarships.
When 2-year-old Hazel Hammersley's parents first received her cancer diagnosis, their world was turned upside down. They were prepared to sacrifice their jobs, health, home, and financial stability to care for their child. Over 6 million people will care for a critically ill child in the next 12 months alone. My name is Hannah Sofield, and I'm here to introduce you to Here to Serve. an organization that mobilizes communities to support families with critically ill children so that their child's well-being does not come at the expense of their own. Here to Serve organizes care communities that are able to take care of fundraising, housework, transportation, all so that the Hammersley family can focus on what matters most, which is Hazel. Hazel's care community is currently composed of 400 people who are really willing to get involved and give their time to the Hammersley family. But we can do even more. Hazel's Facebook page currently has a following of 130,000 people that care, but don't have the time to get involved. What Here to Serve does is provide opportunities for these people to contribute easily. We partnered with CPK to organize a fundraiser, and these people spent $10,000 on pizza over 2 days for the Hammersley family. The line was out the door. So we did it again, this time with another family and another restaurant, and we actually ran out of food after 2 hours and had to end the fundraiser early. So there's an exceeding demand to be able to contribute easily, and we need to digitalize to be able to keep up with it. Here to Save is Here to Serve's mobile platform that connects individuals to philanthropic businesses in their community. These businesses post discount deals on the site, and our communities then shop at these businesses. The discount is split between a coupon to the consumer and a tax-deductible donation from the business to Here to Serve. Under our current model, if just 4% of Hazel's current Facebook following made one $20 transaction on our platform, that would cover the annual costs of our assistance to the Hammersley family. And this is something that doesn't just apply to our organization. Every nonprofit has its own loyal following and its own social capital that it can use to generate donations by joining our platform. This is about real people here. Unfortunately, it breaks my heart to say that over the few weeks that we've been working on this project, 7-year-old Hazel passed away. We can't change the medical outcome, but what we can do is impact the journey for these families by surrounding them with the love of people who care about them. Thank you.
I asked them to leave the lights up for a minute because I want to ask a question, and when I step in like this is so I can see you a little better because I'm right underneath the lights. But I actually have a couple of questions. How many of you currently make, I don't know, a couple $1 million a year? Okay, let's try again. Let's try it a different way. How many of you have dreamed about making a couple $1 million a year?
I make it for other people.
Okay. You don't dream about making it for yourself? Okay, great. I'm about to introduce you to like pollo loco. That's like crazy chicken. And I say that because the individual that I'm going to be introducing you to has everything to do with food. As a matter of fact, one of his nonprofits supposedly is on the intersection of healthy and obesity. Apparently, I live in the neighborhood. But what makes this gentleman really nuts, the loco part, is imagine that you are a trader making millions of dollars a year, and you hate it. You realize that you're addicted to trying to figure out how to make more money, more money, more money. And you're pissed off because your bosses are making $150 million and you're not quite making that amount. So you decide one day, I think I'm going to quit. But I want to do this in a smart way. Give me a bonus and I'll stay. Give me, I don't know, I think his original number was 8, but he accepted $3.6 million year bonus. How many people would like to have that bonus? Oh, come on, if your hand didn't go up, you're lying or not paying attention. Here's where the loco part comes. The man's commitment to making a difference in the world and to having people be able to eat healthy outweighed that. And the man gave back over half of his bonus to leave anyway. I'd like to introduce you to someone you may have read about in Forbes or Money or any of those locations and many others, Sam Polk.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Sort of weird. Okay. Hey, everybody. So I am Sam Polk, founder of a nonprofit in Los Angeles, actually formerly called Grocery Ships, now called Feast, and then a social enterprise restaurant chain called Every Table. I'm going to tell you a little bit about those, a little bit about sort of how I got here and why I'm talking to you. But first, let me say, I'm really happy to see everybody in this room and what you're doing in this sort of burgeoning industry and movement is really exciting. So I'm thrilled to have you as a part of it, and feel free to reach out to me at any time. My email's sort of on every website, and you can just let me know, because the more that I can support sort of young people doing this work, the better. So I grew up in Glendale. I was a super ambitious kid, went to La Cañada High School, then went to Columbia, and after college went to a place that a lot of ambitious young men and women go to, Wall Street, and spent about 8 years sort of climbing up the corporate ladder, but first as a bond trader at Bank of America, then a derivatives trader, and then by the time I was 30, I was a senior distress trader for the 10th largest hedge fund in the world. And I actually didn't hate it. I actually loved it. Because trading bonds and trading derivatives was a fascinating job. You basically learned about companies and learned about industries and saw bets and it was sort of like athletics of the mind in some sense. It was very competitive and very exciting. And the lifestyle was spectacular, front row seats at Yankees games and Knicks games, and reservations to any restaurant you ever wanted in New York City, and unlimited corporate accounts. And actually you didn't need it because you were making so much money. Around that time, the crash happened, sort of 08 and 09, and it was a really crazy time on Wall Street, where you had these like massive institutions, Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, Countrywide, all going down, and it sort of felt like, this formerly stable world was suddenly, in complete flux, and everybody on Wall Street was sort of terrified, mostly because they were at banks that were, about to go down, or their hedge funds were down a huge amount of money and they were going to get fired. I was actually at one of these hedge funds that was short the market, so we were actually up a ton of money. So it wasn't that I was particularly scared about my job, but I was aware of sort of this fear, and I kept hearing guys at work talk about, or at the other end of the phone line talk about, oh my God, they're not going to give me an $800,000 bonus this year. It's only going to be $200,000, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And and I would go home at night and I would read about the foreclosures and the job losses, and I was starting to get a sense that there was something sort of off about everything. And around that time, I picked up Taylor Branch's 3-part series about Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. And if you haven't seen these books, they're like hugely famous books, and they're like tomes that just mostly sit on people's bookshelves. But for whatever reason, I poured through them. And there was a lot of stories, but there was one in particular about the Freedom Riders, which were, activists, both African American and Caucasian and other, that would board buses in the North and take them into the South to basically protest segregation that was officially outlawed but still well in practice. And what that looked like was these buses literally pulling into, Montgomery, Alabama, the bus station in Montgomery, Alabama, and amidst a mob of angry men that were waiting for them. And the bus would pull in, and then they would open the doors, and then the activists would file out to take the beating that they knew was coming. And it came very painfully and very injuriously. And then they would get back on the bus, and if they were well enough to do it again, they would do it again. And there was something that's so crazy about that courage, and so inspiring. And also, I sort of couldn't help but understand that around the same time, there were people at Goldman Sachs trading bonds and making $1 million. And, it really isn't, that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It was just that, to me, it had seemed like they missed the moment as to what was sort of important in the world. And I started to get the sense that, that was happening to me too. And I started to think about actually, Wall Street and my career in some sense, and what it sort of like really meant. And the thing about Wall Street was that, at the end of 25 or 30 years, I was going to have really a boatload of money, a ton of money. But the only other thing I was going to have was sort of numbers next to my name. Basically how a hedge fund manager or trader's success is gauged is, what were your returns each year? So I'd say 08, 09, 10. And if they were 15% or above, that would be a great career. And there seems something just so sort of like epically meaningless about that, that I started to think about leaving. And I thought about it enough over the next few months that I ended up resigning from that job and walking away from a career I'd worked my whole life to get to. And I really had no idea what I was going to do, except that I knew I wanted to leave behind the greed and ambition of New York City. And so I decided to move to a place with absolutely no focus on greed and ambition, Los Angeles. So I came home and basically started doing volunteer work, and I started writing. I ended up writing a book. I wrote a front-page New York Times op-ed about this experience. And then basically one weekend, my wife and I sat down and sort of binge-watched a bunch of Netflix food documentaries over one weekend. And we watched, Food Inc. and Forks Over Knives, and then there was this one that less people have heard of, but it was called A Place at the Table, and it was about hunger in America and how in the richest country in the world, millions of people don't know where their next meal is coming from. And that sort of blew my mind and broke my heart, but what really sort of amazed me was the argument that the film made about the intersection of food and poverty and obesity, and basically described neighborhoods that it called food deserts, where there's very little access to fresh, healthy food and tons of fast food. And partially as a consequence to that and a lot of other things, things like rates of diabetes and heart disease and childhood obesity and amputations even are double, triple, 3 times the rates that you see in more affluent communities. So much so that a kid born in Watts, for example, will live on average 12 years less than a kid born in Bel Air. And to me that sort of, it was almost like it just triggered, I actually wasn't sort of like a food guy really, but it just sort of pushed me beyond sort of like the levels that I was sort of comfortable with in terms of fairness and justice in the world, basically. And so the first thing that we did was I started a nonprofit called Grocery Ships. And the idea behind Grocery Ships was really to help parents living in neighborhoods like this to get themselves and their families healthy. And the interesting thing about food and actually nonprofit work when you sort of go into food is that it is really like a very deep and complicated rabbit hole. And by which I mean, like, there are a lot of issues at play. So there are issues about access. There's no Sweet Green in South LA. There's issues about affordability because there's no Sweet Green in South LA because nobody in South LA can afford a $15 salad. There is some level of educational difference, and that is true, but also not as big as most people think, in my opinion. But then there's some other things, which is things like this. Rates of depression in underserved communities are 2 or 3 times as high in more affluent communities. Clear correlation between depression and unhealthy eating. Rates of trauma, significantly higher in underserved communities. Clear correlation between trauma and unhealthy eating. Stress, literally like medical studies done on the relationship between financial stress in particular and unhealthy eating. Very high correlation. So you have these sort of like recipe for basically an impossible situation where you've got folks without much money, without much time. Living in poverty is not just about not enough money, it's about not enough time. And you have these incredible places like McDonald's selling super fast, healthy or unhealthy meals for super cheap that are addictive food that people are sort of primed to want to eat. So Grocery Ships is basically structured as a holistic model to basically address all of this. And how it works is 10 moms at a time meet once a week for 2 hours. And in those meetings, there's nutrition education and healthy cooking skills and fresh produce brought in. But the key thing about it is that it's not a didactic lecture. It's structured as a community-led support group. So the people running the groups are not some sort of dietitian from outside, but a mom who has been through the program before. Because when it comes to eating, it's pretty simple, if not easy, right? I mean, you can learn a lot about sort of macronutrients and bulletproof coffee, but really it's sort of like whole food and healthy food and not a lot of processed food and sugar. But that's hard to do. And so these groups, which are led by these moms, art, people sit in a circle, and there's a box of Kleenex that sits in the middle, and I'll tell you why that is. We actually structured it like that from the beginning, and I remember the first group ever was in this bungalow at the edge of a church parking lot on Normandy, and we had sort of met these moms through Manual Arts High School, and there was one in particular named Helen Langley, and when I was talking to her about joining the group, I said, what are you interested in doing this for? And she said, I'm a retired school teacher. I live in a house with 5 kids, none of whom are my own. They're all the children of my brothers and sisters who are either incarcerated or, drug addicts, homeless, living on the street. And so she'd taken these kids in, and she said, these kids get to see, the kids whose parents are around, they often get to see their parents only twice a year. On Thanksgiving or Christmas, the parents will come over, they can take a shower, and then eat a meal with their kids, and then they have to go. And she said one of these kids would come up to her every time and say, Helen, am I going to end up like my mom? And she would say, no, you're going to end up like me. And she took her responsibility to these kids so deeply and personally, but she was sick, they were sick. And by the way, you see that a lot. Like it isn't just numbers. Like everybody's got a family member that's in diabetes or dialysis or cancer or whatever it is. And so that first group, I remember we started with what has sort of become the way we start all these groups, is a check-in in the beginning, where you just go around the circle and answer the question, how are you feeling? And I remember that first group, we did that, and basically we got one-word answers or pass. And there was actually so little participation that we had to end the groups early that day and the second day as well. And then the third group, we started to go around the circle, and the same thing started to happen, pass, and then it got to Helen, and she was quiet for a second, and then she looked up and she said, it's been 20 years since anyone asked how I was feeling. And then for whatever reason, she just started to open up about her life and talk about what it felt like. And soon she was crying, and the woman next to her was crying, and pretty soon everyone in the room was crying. And that happens basically in every group. And by the way, it's not just, one of the things in sort of nonprofit and social enterprise work is that you often find yourself talking to people who want you to talk in a way that there's this group, and they're different. And I don't think that's true. I think it's just exacerbated, more intense. Like a lot of these moms don't have nearly the support that you do in the more affluent communities, but at the same time, these sort of feelings around food and shame and family and stress, and the fact that if you get 10 people in a circle and start talking about what's really going on, that people are going to start crying, that is universal, in my opinion. And so, that first group, by the end of 6 months, we saw all these incredible results, lower BMI and higher fruit and vegetable consumption, and really some off-the-charts sort of social and emotional gains, so things like sense of self-esteem and sense of connectedness much higher. And then, Helen would say things like that she would come into the group and unzip herself, and then 2 hours later zip herself back up again to go out and face her life. And we sort of knew that we were onto something. And that first year we did 1 group. The next year we did 2 groups. The year after that we did 10 groups. The year after that we did 25 groups. Grocery Ships, which is now called Feast, is actually expanding to New York City this year. I stepped down as executive director about 2 years ago, and it continues to grow and thrive. And one of the reasons I wanted to sort of talk about that is because there was a reason that I sort of stepped down from the Grocery Ships, and the reason was that we were growing this nonprofit, and one of the things you learn sort of growing a nonprofit is that it's really, really, really hard to do, and. And there's a few reasons for it. First, it is like, almost by definition, it's hard to get people to sort of like give you money that they're never going to get back, right? And so you spend like a lot of time talking to really rich people, and then they say, okay, I'm going to give you $250, and that is not a good use of time, basically. The other thing is that the sort of big funding sources for nonprofits, which are like foundations, in my mind, I think that they're sort of like analogous to venture capital firms, but venture capital firms want to get in early so that they can get the most return. But foundations, they want to wait because they've seen so many sort of well-meaning but ineffectual sort of nonprofit leaders get started after 1 year and then fold, that they want to wait until you've got 3 or 4 or 5 years of a track record. And while that totally makes sense, it also leads to this structure where you don't have anything like the innovation that you do in the for-profit sectors, because, you know, in for-profit you had Uber and Airbnb started less than 10 years ago. Now they're worth, you know, whatever, $50, $100 billion. But in the nonprofit, there's no, or very much fewer sort of like rocket ship success stories that are disrupting the world. And in fact, you have the opposite. You have the foundations having built these relationships with these sort of like calcified, institutionalized organizations. No offense if anybody here is from them, because I'm really not criticizing them. United Way, Boys and Girls Club, American Heart Association, these things. All I'm criticizing is the sort of lack of innovation and the lack of competition that allows them to stay in those esteemed positions, getting these huge grants. Other thing about nonprofits is that you can't hire people unless they are just willing to take less money. So the reason that it works in the for-profit world is that, you know, you can hire the chief technology officer from Google if you've got a great idea and you're going to give them half of your company. But you can't hire the head of development for the Boys and Girls Club because they're already making $200,000 and your nonprofit can't afford that, and there's no equity to incent them otherwise. So, you know, I started to understand that it was a challenging structure. And then also candidly, in me, I sort of started to realize that, you know, there were both of these things, that I still had this ambition to make money and do things on a big scale. And I had this deep ambition to sort of make the world better. And it's, you know, finding that balance for me has been and continues to be something that I work on a lot and that is a moving target. And so anyways, from that and those realizations, and also hearing from a lot of these moms in South LA who would say things like, you know, part of the reason we go to McDonald's is because it's, you know, fast and convenient and you can get in and out in a minute. And if there was something healthy like that, then we would eat that as well. We came up with the idea for a company called Everytable, and Everytable is pretty simple. It's a central commissary kitchen where we're producing, you know, incredibly healthy, fresh, delicious meals every single morning, and then packaging them in grab-and-go containers. And that sounds simple, but it's really the key economic insight, which is that we have a single kitchen that supports all of our restaurants. We have 5 restaurants right now. We'll have 7 in the next couple of months, and we'll have 12 in 12 months. And the beauty of that is that, you know, a usual restaurant costs $1.5 million to build, is, you know, 2,500 square feet of space, has 10 or 15 employees, very high cost structure, which makes it really, really hard to sell food really cheap. But for us, because we have a single kitchen that supports all our stores, we can then open locations that are 700 square feet and only cost $200,000 to build because you don't have to build the kitchen as part of it, and have 2 employees. And so it gives us this incredibly lean cost structure so that we can make healthy food affordable, like on the same level of fast food for everybody. But for us, you know, affordability means different things in different neighborhoods. And that really was the sort of like, almost, I'd say, key insight or sort of reason for being for this company is that we said, you know, we 50 years ago, there was this sort of like Horatio Alger idea that if you could lift yourself up from your bootstraps, you could make your future and make the American dream. And now increasingly it's become clear that that is true for a group of people that basically looks like the Princeton lacrosse team. But for most of the world, or for a lot of the world, that is not true. That the opportunities are just not as equal, and the structural inequalities are too vast oftentimes to overcome. And so we said, okay, that is how it is, but we believe that healthy food is a human right and should be available and affordable for everybody. And so what we did is we basically instituted a variable pricing model where in the Westfield Mall in Century City, we'll sell a Jamaican jerk chicken or a kale chicken Caesar salad for $7 or $8, which is, by the way, a great deal versus Sweet Green and Tender Greens and all these other guys. But that same Jamaican jerk chicken in Watts will be for sale for $5. And for us, it's about making sure that we're profitable at every store. And we can talk about this more, but there is there is always going to be a tension between a sort of subsidy model where you're really losing money on something with social good, and I'm here to tell you that that is true. Like, there is conflict with that has to be overcome. But for us, it was like, can we make these profitable in every location? And if we could, but we could lower the price, then it helped our social mission. It was what we were about, and it was actually good business in some sense, because we could go into markets and really into any market in the city in a way where, if Tender Greens can go into 15, we could go into 50, because Tender Greens will never go into Inglewood or South LA or Watts. So we are, about 2 years in. We've raised about $10 million. Most recently in a $5 million Series A. We were actually just on Shark Tank. And the interesting thing about the fundraising is that we are this sort of like interesting hybrid company where we've raised money from sort of pure venture capital funds. We've raised a lot of money from impact investors, and more we're raising money from foundations who see this and say, okay, well, we're used to giving money to nonprofits, but this is the most sort of sustainable and scalable solution for ending food equality. So let's see what we can do. And I do think it is a really, really interesting time for the sort of financing structures behind all of this, because that's where I think it really gets interesting. This movement is taking off in a big way, and there are massive sort of like federal level things designed to sort of support more and more business in underserved communities. And so that's the only thing I guess I'll end here, but I just leave you with is that, the world is sort of not sort of built by the people with the best ideas. It's built by the people with the best ideas who also have access to capital. And those people tend to look like me and, grow up in places like Westwood. And, there's something off about that in general, but there's also some sort of consequence of that, which is that folks tend to want to build businesses for the markets and the people that they know. And in my opinion, there's huge opportunity, not just for sort of like charities and not just for, subsidy type businesses, but actual legitimate businesses that make money, but that work in underserved communities, which are often, lowest per capita income, but also highest density, so that there is a lot of money there in what is called sort of the bottom of the pyramid. So as you guys figure out what you're going to do next, I would encourage you to go into other areas of Los Angeles, and I'm sure this is not true for everybody here, but for a lot of people, the map of LA basically looks like, very clear sort of depiction of west of the 405 and north of the 10 and downtown and Pasadena and the South Bay, but the area in the middle is an area that not a lot of people go to, and we do live in a crazily segregated city. But there's a lot of interesting and sort of wonderful things happening in those communities. And one of the things in my world, we sort of used to use this term food desert, but we actually basically stopped using that for the most part, because it was this idea of a label sort of that we are putting on a community that, in a well-meaning attempt to describe the challenge, actually sort of tries, labels a community as something lacking, where in our experience, places like Compton and South LA and Baldwin Hills have amazing things going on. So I'm going to end there, and I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
So are you profitable in the underprivileged piece?
Yeah, I mean, actually the most interesting thing that our company has going on right now is that our most successful store, our highest volume store, is in South LA and a per capita income of $13,000 a year. And what's really interesting about that was that the whole sort of premise of the business, like I said, was like, higher prices, and the target sort of profit margins in the underserved areas was like 0 to 5%. Well, the entire company is sort of basically mobilizing around that one store with the idea of in 3 months getting it to 25% profitability, because if we can do that, and we're only doing that because it's been so successful basically that we didn't, that it actually looks like it's possible. But imagine if you could do that. It doesn't mean that you then don't do the affluent stores. It just means that you don't need to. That you could keep just opening stores in underserved communities, which, the interesting thing about underserved communities is that, in more affluent communities, there's crazy competition, right? Sweet Green, Tender Greens, Tokaya, Dig In, all the Lemonade. And then in underserved communities, when it comes to healthy food, there's literally one option, and that's Subway, basically.
I'll scream. All right. Can you tie in the element of your nonprofit with the conversation and the education about good eating habits, which I'm assuming that roundtable discussion leads to? Can you tie that in to the conversation in your for-profit at every table?
What's interesting is like the ways that we could tie it in is it is sort of like a powerful tool for sort of like community building around our stores. Although the truth is that it's so micro, 10 people at a time once a week versus our stores, which, really we try to do 500 meals a day, which means thousands, if not tens of thousands of regular customers. So you can't sort of map it one-to-one. The truth is it's actually most sort of beneficial for branding, for sort of like talking about your story in some sense. And there is, and this is not what you were saying, I know this, but there is this conception that folks in underserved communities only like to eat fast food and they need to be educated out of their habits. And what's really interesting actually is that the percentages of people in affluent communities and middle class communities and poor communities that eat fast food is actually pretty close to each other. It's just that in underserved, so if you pull up a thing, there's plenty of McDonald's around Westwood and Santa Monica, and they do well. Go to the drive-through at 8 a.m. and it's just packed. It's just that in underserved communities, there's nothing else, and that's because it's only the fast food guys that have figured out how to sell food at $5 profitably. So our opinion is that it is true that I don't want to make it like it's totally not true, but that there is way more demand for healthy food than a lot of people sort of give credit for.
Thank you so much for speaking to an issue that I've been learning about the whole past year, because I'm taking the environmental science cluster here, and they talk a lot about food deserts and things of that sort, and they always bring in like people from the Santa Monica farmers market, people that monitor big organic gardens and imperfect produce and things of that sort. And I was wondering where you exactly source your fresh produce from, and if you ever partner with people that do things like imperfect produce.
Yeah, we source from local farms, which is really easy to say in California. And we have some organic stuff, but we also that's another sort of area where we have a pretty strong point of view, which is that, price is a really big driver for us. And sometimes in more affluent communities, you can get a sort of moral sort of structure that says organic is good and conventional is bad. And that is an opinion or a belief that comes with a certain level of wealth, and it is not available to everybody. And so for us, we love organic. We think organic is better than conventional, and we love $5 meals. And so we are very discerning about the difference.
I got one here.
Hi, thank you so much for speaking. This is definitely an issue that I love learning about and am fairly passionate about also. I was curious if you cater towards specific family members. Obviously, children require different portion sizes than adults and come with their own challenges of tastes. So have you considered about how you reach different people within the family unit, as well as there's high school senior boys that need a very large portion, so how do you meet their needs as well?
You know what? It's a good question. The short answer is we have kids meals now, which is really helpful. And we haven't sort of varied the sizes. We sometimes consider a couple of things, we consider sort of family size portions and family style portions for your kitchen table. And then we also, actually that is an issue that we talk about where, for a guy, it might be, your average meal should be 700 or 800 calories, where if you're a, small woman, it might be 400 or 500. So we haven't figured out how to do that yet, but it's a good question.
My kid.
Alright, you want to yell?
Me too.
Okay.
Sam, thanks for being here today. Talking about pricing your meals at $5 and how that's a super big competitive edge in the fact that you are healthy food for that price. How long is the one kitchen model sustainable, and do you have a plan for what happens after you expand to where that can't be the case?
Yeah, so we just moved into Lemonade's original kitchen. So we think that can do 50 to 100 stores around Los Angeles. And we will basically have to just replicate that hub and spoke model in every sort of major region that we go to.
I do a lot of service projects in Watson, Compton, better organizations. I'm curious how you're getting the communities to engage with you, because I know that's sometimes hard because we're seen as an outside group coming in, and there's a hesitancy for them to join in. How do you get them to engage and kind of buy into what you're doing, and what kind of programs are you doing to reach out to the different groups?
Yeah, I think so. Two things. One is we hire from the community, super important. We also spend a lot of time sort of doing grassroots sort of community and partnership building ahead of the opening of the stores, and just bringing our food and talking to people about it and seeing what they like, what they don't, sometimes changing the menu based on that. And then I think for us, the big sort of insight onto that was to make a product and an experience that was unbelievably amazing, so that people couldn't help but want to come to it and want to talk to their friends about it. And I don't know if we've succeeded, but I think we've done a pretty good job. So, you open and you throw a big grand opening event and you have all these partners, and then really it's the word of mouth after that.
Thank you. I've experienced every table. I think it's awesome. Live in the Ladera area, and they are food deserts. I lived in Culver City prior to that, and I could eat all the time healthy choices, but it's very difficult to do so, even in Ladera, which is a very high-income area of African Americans in Los Angeles. I applaud you for what you're doing. People are making choices on food based upon what's in their area, and that's why you see kids going to school drinking soda and eating chips and things like that, but it's amazing. But I'm curious to know what your expansion plans are outside of Los Angeles next. Are you looking in the South? I've done a lot of programs at historically black colleges and universities where there's not a lot of healthy eating choices, in the southeastern part of the United States where there are a larger percentage of African Americans, and just curious what you're doing next in those areas. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, I'll answer your question in sort of a roundabout way. So first of all, we're going to stay in LA for sort of the time being, just to sort of prove it out and go really deep and see. I mean, imagine how sort of both profitable and low prices you could get if you had 100 stores doing 500 meals a day. And then the second thing is that we will start franchising soon. And, franchising actually goes to that question, which is that franchise is a great tool for us because it means that we have entrepreneurs working on our behalf. They pay to open the store. It's a great capital sort of way to sort of launch a business. But also it's, folks from communities owning their own stores. And actually one of the interesting things that we're doing is that we're partnering right now with an organization here called Leaders Up, and we're basically co-creating a leadership training program. Jeffrey Wallace, that's right. I was with him 2 days ago. So basically, what it'll look like is Jeffrey and his team will bring us candidates, and then the best ones we'll hire. They'll go to work and do an every table store. During the day they'll work. At night they'll go through an entrepreneurship training program co-created by us and Jeffrey, basically. At the end of which, if they're really good, they will say, okay, you can be a franchisee. We'll get hopefully Kellogg Foundation or Annenberg Foundation to basically pay for the building of that location, and have that entrepreneur basically own equity in that and be able to buy all of the equity back so that they have full ownership basically over time.
Jeffrey is awesome, and you're creating entrepreneurs within those communities, and that is awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alyssa.
Actually, oh, there you are.
So,
I see how the benefits of your economic model really work for urban poverty, but I was wondering if you have any thoughts on how it might address rural poverty where you might not have as much density.
It would be tougher in rural areas. So yeah, I think we need, I don't know what the sort of like number is. It's basically like, you know, like for example, like Walmart's strategy when they rolled out was all of these sort of like rural areas, not going head to head with people. And they sort of would go into like a town of like 20,000, but they knew that tons of people from the surrounding areas would come. I don't know, there's gonna be clearly some like limit to what we can do, which is like a limit to how far from the commissary kitchen and how many meals we can really comfortably expect to sell from a restaurant, you know, in a low density area. But you're right, it's gonna be tougher in lower density areas.
Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
A couple of things I want to appreciate. I recently read a book called Born on Third Base, which you may know the guy who wrote it.
I do know that guy.
And so do I. He's a family friend. And the point of the title is that there are a lot of us who are born on third base, and then there are those who aren't. And I just really appreciate the thinking you've done and the leadership you're providing for helping those of us to think about how we can make sure that we level the playing field. And I also appreciate that you're a model. I mean, for years it's been obvious, if you're in the social enterprise field, that there are enormous opportunities for social enterprise in developing countries or in third world countries, because that, you know, the bottom of the pyramid has all these needs that people can go in and serve efficiently. And you're an example of doing it here, which there aren't enough of. So just thanks so much. And also for your nonprofit and your for-profit models. Growing the space. All right, well, as you can imagine, the judges, we were gone a while. We worked hard. And ultimately, the awards that the judges decided to make were based on funding, spreading the funding based on how well developed the enterprise, that is to say, how viable the enterprises seemed to be. And the enterprise which was most clear, both in terms of its problem and its solution and its plan for going to market, was Maternal Mental Health Now. And so they will be receiving a check for $20,000. Come on down. What? And then the other two we also really liked, but we felt like they had further to go and didn't quite as fully match the criteria. And so $5,000 awards will be provided to Cardborigami and Seg Career Mentors. Will you all come down?
And we also have our audience choice. And our winner for the audience choice was Second Call.
All right.
You can bring your whole team down. Come on down. Congratulations.
All right, so everyone's a winner, but a few people are going to take home some money. Please give it up for our winners. And this concludes the formal part of our gathering. We hope that you'll stick around and talk to people that you've found interesting and visit the tables of our participants. There is more food. We thank you so much for participating in this grand finale, and hope that we'll see you next year.
Go Bruins!